18 months, we've been working on an acknowledgement to recognize the indigenous tribes that have basically wandered this area for millennia. And over the last 18 months, we've learned more about the Indians and the indigenous people and are working toward developing an acknowledgement of that we would read at events like this. And so I'm going to share with you our present status of our acknowledgement. It's a dynamic document that will evolve over time, and we'll share it with you as we update it. The Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Central Oregon, with assistance from the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Group, is on a continuing journey of broad learning and personal reflection toward a greater awareness and understanding of the indigenous people of Oregon on whose territory we reside. We are developing a territorial acknowledgement recognizing the traditional inhabitants of this land, the Northern Paiute, Wasco, Warm Springs, Klamath, Modoc, Yahuskan, and Shoshone. We remain hopeful this process will lead our community to an authentic allyship of support for our neighbors, the Confederated Tribes of the Warm Springs. Thank you.
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Mystery. What are we? Life is Where are we going? Where do we come from? Mystery. What are we? Life is Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
Oh my God. Who's doing the video? This is terrible.
For our chalice lighting, we're going to have a Quiche Maya prayer to Tohil, the god of fire. O you sacred fire, purifying fire, who rise up in brilliant flames above the altar. You are the heart of sacrifice, the daring flight of prayer, the hidden spark in all things, the glorious soul of the sun.
Spirit of life, come to me. Sing in my heart all the stirs of the wind, rise in the sea, move in the giving life the shape of justice. Roots what we wings set me free of love. Come to me, come to me.
Blessings on your day.
I'd chill the Pahelio women. God, Amy, Jesus Christ.
Okay. I think we're ready. I think this will work. Okay. Good morning. Give me 1 second to get my little props out here. I'm Amy Brock, for those of you who haven't met me yet. I am the Director of Religious Exploration for our children and youth programs. I use she, her, or they, them pronouns. And this morning I have a fun story to share with you. And I'm just gonna take a second to put these out. But while I am, let's see. Is it okay if I pull this piece of tape up? Okay, I'm gonna do that. While I'm sharing, or while I'm getting my things out this morning, if you want to take a moment just to sort of check in with your body, make sure you're feeling comfortable where you're at. If you feel great there, that's fine. If you'd like to come up a little bit closer so you can see, our rug is open. And just notice your breath and how things are kind of feeling for you this morning. So today's story is a Maya creation story. Okay. And it goes like this. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there were two gods, and their names were grandmother and grandfather. And as they came to be, they brought together their thoughts and their words to become one. And they created something that was really beautiful. And they called it Earth. And on this Earth, they put living beings like animals and trees. And they were really pleased with their beautiful world. But eventually, the living things on this Earth would die. And that made them really sad. And so they thought, how can we keep this going? How can we make this sustainable? We have to create beings who can live and speak and worship, beings that will sustain us with their gifts. And so they thought, maybe we should make birds who will sing. Can you guys help me make a sound that birds make when they sing? Caw-caw! All right. And then they thought, maybe we should make deer who can walk. Can you make sounds that deer make when they walk? So they had these beautiful birds and they had these beautiful deer who could walk and drum their feet, but they still couldn't speak. Not like humans do anyway. And so they were kind of sad, but then they thought, we must not give up. So instead of giving up, they decided to go and rest. And so they took a nap under their blanket by a mountain. And they took a long time. They took some rest there. And one day, grandmother opened her eyes and she noticed that there was an ant crawling along the ground. When she looked closer, she noticed that there were lots of ants crawling along the ground, and they were holding something. They were holding a tiny, tiny little piece of corn. So she woke grandfather up. And she said, do you think we should make corn people? And he said, yes, it is time. He said that we need people to sustain life and that life would soon burst forth. And so they gathered grains of corn and they ground them 9 times, one for each full moon that a baby lives inside of its parent. Really, really tiny. And then grandmother took some water and she added that to the corn. And then she took her hands and the oil that was on them and she started to form the corn. And from that came wonderful corn humans with faces and mouths that could talk and speak. Look, they said, listen. And the first words out of their corn mouths were, thank you. And our gods were happy. And from that joy, they created more things. And they created all kinds of wonderful beings in the environment for their corn beings to live in. And so ends our story today. It's one version of the story. There are lots of versions of the story with lots of different pieces and parts. But the thing that really stuck out to me as I was thinking about telling this story to all of you is that sometimes it takes more than once to get things right. Sometimes we have to keep trying and starting over again, even when it gets hard. Have you ever done that before? Have you ever had to keep trying, starting over and over again? Yeah. We've had a lot of practice with that over the last 2 years. A lot. And that's why I'm so excited that this fall we are planning for in-person RE. And last week I let you know that we are hoping to offer coming of age for our middle school class, which is our 6th through 8th graders. And coming of age is sort of like a UU confirmation class. It's an opportunity for our young people to really dive in and explore what they think and believe with other people who are willing to nurture them and sort of be a guide for them along that journey. And that's where you come in, and that's where my exciting news that Shayla mentioned comes in. We have half of the volunteers that we need to run Coming of Age this year, but I need a few more. So just take a moment and think about it today as we talk more about creating things and being and moving through the world. And if you think you would like to take some time and give a little bit of your time to our young people on Sundays during their RE class in the fall, come and find me and I can talk to you a little bit more about what our coming of age program is going to look like. And I'd love to get you connected because it's going to be so much fun. And it's going to just be such a wonderful opportunity to grow and nurture our faith in our young people and in ourselves. And so ends our time together today. And with that, we'll say the Children's Covenant. In this place, I am loving. In this place, I am a friend to the earth and all animals and people. In this place, I am loved.
Let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place, which is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream.
How was that view?
Life is both and. We now share in community our joys and sorrows. Feel free to light a candle during this time. Chayla Sloper says, I had the joy and honor of singing the national anthem at the High Desert Classic Horse Show yesterday and last Saturday. Last week, I got choked up. Yesterday, I held it together. Jonathan Bile says, several personnel and professional days. Woo! We have 5 event staff personnel. Yay! The new staff is doing a great job and has helped me improve my tan. From myself, my joy is that after 1.5 years of building our new home addition and 14 years of waiting, we're finally in. Jazz and I are beyond happy. And lastly, from Carolyn Tate, I'm so thrilled that my sister Marilyn, my niece Kara, nephew Bart, and Kara's husband Brett Larson have moved here from Flagstaff. We're together in the same place for the first time ever.
This is our moment of prayer. You and I are who we are today because at some time, someone believed in us. Remember? Who needs your support now? I invite you to take a few moments to think of a person, a creature, or a thing that needs your blessing. Then, drawing from that gratitude that you feel for those people who have helped you, send that person, that thing, your blessings. There we go. Earlier, Amy told us a version of the Maya creation story that was written down around 1550. And by the time the Popol Vuh, the Maya creation and origins narrative, was written around 1550, the Maya people had already been invaded by the Spanish. Their way of life, their gods, their ancestors, their languages, all were under attack. But these 16th century Maya knew that even before the Spanish invasion, Maya civilizations had risen and fallen. They knew this because they saw, as they traveled for trade and for pilgrimage, the remains of earlier civilizations in their landscape.
No.
I have a nifty pointer.
No.
But I didn't change the slides, so I'm gonna go back. I'll run the slides, folks, unless I tell you otherwise. Notice this person standing on this stela right here. It's kind of cool, huh? Did you see that? Okay. So that's the Maya area on the right. Okay. So the Maya were aware, at least vaguely, of the much earlier Olmec civilization, which flourished between 1200 and 400 BC. They knew this because tales were told of the green stone buried underneath layers and layers of colored clays at one of the pilgrimage sites, which was in honor of the goddesses of groundwater and childbirth. They also knew about the, what we now call late pre-classic Maya, or they probably thought of it as like the very earliest Maya before them, because they would travel by the ruins of huge pyramids out in the rainforest. These sites, these really early sites, mostly in the Petén of Guatemala, that's what we call it today, were on the trade routes for jade, and jade was the most important substance, so they were out there trading for jade. So let me just point out that this whole complex right here of red painted temples are the top of a huge pyramid that is larger in volume than any of the pyramids of ancient Egypt. They also frequently saw the ruins of the many, many classic period kingdoms. Here's a slide of a drawing of the palace at Palenque as it appeared after the collapse of Palenque around 1800, when the Europeans got there and started drawing things. So the ruins of classic Maya cities, hundreds of them, dotted the entire Maya region. And by 1550, when the Popol Vuh was written down, those earlier civilizations had been gone for about 700 years. So after the classic Maya kingdoms collapsed around 800, survivors moved out of the central Maya rainforest to the Yucatan in the north and the highland Guatemala in the south, where the Popol Vuh was written. And they suffered as their precious books, because the Maya had writing, of course, and they made handwritten manuscripts. All but 4 of their books were burned by the Spanish. Those 4 survive today. So in around 1550, as I keep saying, some Maya people in highland Guatemala thought they had already been indoctrinated by the Spanish, and they had already learned to write alphabetically. They used to write hieroglyphically. Now they're writing alphabetically. And they thought, well, they wrote in the preamble to the Popol Vuh, their creation narrative, they wrote, "This account we shall now write under the law of Christianity. We shall bring it forth because there is no longer the book, the means of seeing life clearly. Great is its performance and its account of the completion and germination of all the sky and earth, its four corners and its four sides. That's part of the preamble. So there are several stories that were written down in the Popol Vuh, and we've heard about the four efforts of the creator couple, the grandmother, grandfather, to create humans who will sustain them. And sandwiched in between these attempts to create proper humans is a story we didn't hear earlier. It tells how the twin grandsons of the creator couple battle the lords of the underworld in a ball game contest. And if anybody knows about the Popol Vuh, they might have heard about that particular story, the hero twins versus the lords of the underworld. One of the twins is decapitated, but his brother gets help from the animals to bring him back to life and ultimately defeat the lords of the underworld. Then, though, instead of saying, we won, the twins sacrifice themselves by jumping into a fire, and they become sustenance for the creator couple, who then have the energy to make the fourth creation, the people of maize. In Maya, that's Halachwinik, the true people. Whoops. Now, maize is a very interesting plant. You know, like people made of maize, that seems a little bit weird to us. But maize is actually pretty cool in a lot of ways. It has both male and female parts, for one thing. And the Maya looked at the maize plant as an ideal form because it was, I guess you could call it dual gendered or something like that. And of course, it was considered to be the co-identity of humans. The standard concept in Maya thought is people are maize. It's not just we eat maize, we are maize. And it's interesting too, because maize never was a plant that existed without the intervention of humans. Around 7000 BC, people were hunting and gathering, and they found a little grass called teosinte that had a few grains on it. And they thought, oh, let's eat that, you know. But it was so tiny, and it didn't do much. So they crossed it with another wild grass, and gradually they selected the seeds, they did all this sort of scientifically, and they managed to create maize. So maize is an early hybrid plant, and without humans, maize would not exist. And without maize, the Maya felt they would not exist. So there was this reciprocal relationship between humans and maize. And the other thing is that unless one processes maize with calcium hydroxide called lime, not the fruit, but the mineral, if you don't process, like boil the maize in lime water, and you eat maize without processing it that way with lime, and that is a staple of your diet, if that's like mostly what you're eating, then that can cause women to have pregnancies that develop neural tube defects. But they figured this out probably by trial and error, don't you think? They figured this out by about 1000 BC, and we have evidence of this in the form of artworks showing people with babies with neural tube defects, and then that stops about 1000 BC. So anyway, people had to try and fail multiple times with maize until they found success. So in this drawing, this is ancient Maya, it's my copy of an ancient Maya drawing that was painted on a plate, a big plate, like a platter. And in the middle is, this character is the human maize being sprouting from a turtle. There's the turtle's face. This thing down here is a skull, and the concept and the word skull in Maya is the same as the word for seed. So this is a seed, and the turtle stands for the earth, and so the human maize person is sprouting out of the turtle earth from the skull of a previous creation, a seed. Okay, now then, we've seen several examples of trying and failing leading to success. Civilizations that rise and fall and rise in a new form. Experimentation with maize as a food source. And the story of the creator couple's multiple attempts to make the true people. And all these stories share the concept of cyclicality. And cyclicality pervades Maya thought. So we won't go into this today, but the Maya developed, as you may know, they were great astronomers and mathematicians. And by about 100 BC, they had developed a base 20 numeration system with zeros. So they had developed the concept of zero. They knew by, who knows when, but they knew very long ago the length of the solar year. They knew the length of the Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn cycles. They could predict eclipses and more. And no fewer than 7 calendrical counts governed each day in the Maya thought. So now I have recruited 13 volunteers who are going to help me explain the Maya 260-day calendar. So let me give a brief intro, and then we'll all stand up and do our thing. So unique in the world was one Maya calendar that's based on the human body and human gestation cycles. This is called the 260-day count. The Maya word is solkin, which means count of days. And the 260 is so cool because it links humans to the cosmos. And it offers us an example of the UU seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part, in action. Okay, stand up, everybody. Not everybody, just people with numbers. The 260 count is composed of 2 separate cycles. There are 13 numbers that combine with 20 named days. And you can see this. Here are the 20 named days here. We're starting here with Emish and the number 1. Just a second. And here are the 13 numerals. Dots are 1 and bars are 5. So like 13 has 2 bars and 3 dots. Okay, so everybody who has a number, we're going to start with Mari. She's number 1. And then the people with a number are just going to shout out their number in order. And after the person says the number, I'm going to say a day name, and then number 2 can say her number, and then I'll say a day name. Okay, Mari. 1. Emish. 2. Eek. 3. Akbal. 4. Khan. 5. Chikchan. 6. Kimi. 7. Manik. 8. Lamat. 9. Muluk. 10. Oak. 11. Chuen. 12. Eb. 13. Ben. 1. Ish. 2. Men. 3. Kib. 4. Kaban. 5. Etsnob. 6. Kawak. 7. Ahau. 8. Emish. 9. Eek. 10. Akbal. 11. Khan. 12. Chikchan. 13. Kimi. Okay, it goes on, but we won't go through all 260 days. Thank you, numbers. But I think you get the idea. Every day has a unique number, day name combination for 260 days, and then it starts over. There's no other calendar like this in the world. Right, so there's 13 numbers and there's 20 day names. So that's why you don't get back to 1 Emish until 260 days have elapsed. Now does that make sense? Sort of? It takes a while. Usually it takes me an hour to explain this, so we only have a couple of minutes. Okay. All right, why 260? Well, it is a very human number. What do people have 20 of? What do people have 13 of? Yeah, major joints. My niece is of PT. She's like, no, we have many more joints than that. But the major joints, okay, according to the Maya, okay. So 260, it's a very human number. Also, how many months is a child carried in its mother's womb? 9. Well, if you divide 260 by 9, you get 28.8. The Mayas did not use fractions. Sorry, Larry. And they thought that's close enough to a lunation. So 9 lunations in a 260-day cycle. It's the human gestation cycle. It's the human body cycle. It's a human calendrical cycle. All the other calendrical cycles are astronomical. This is a human cycle. And the Maya also saw maize as having a 260-day cycle. It doesn't really, unless you add on some days for the ritual of clearing the cornfield, the ritual of burning the cornfield, and then at the end, the ritual of, bending the dead ears and the collecting, they added on to the maize cycle, which doesn't really take 260 days to grow corn, but they made it so that it would be like humans, right? Because humans are maize, so they had to pull that one off. Okay. So also, interestingly, the 260-day cycle links humans with Venus. Bet you never thought about your affiliation with Venus. Oh, you have? Well, so, the Maya are interested in approximate commensuration. They don't like fractions. They like, they're not disturbed if it's almost perfect, okay? That's good enough for them. So Venus's morning star, in its 584-day cycle, Venus is morning star for approximately 260, 263 days. Then it has an inferior conjunction, I think. Maybe that's, anyway. Then it's evening star for about 260, 263 days. And then it has a superior conjunction. I might have gotten those two mixed up. But anyway, so morning star, evening star, both about 260 days. Now, this is not a Maya codex, but it's, the Maya would have gotten this. There's a Maya version of this. It's just very deteriorated, and so it doesn't make a good slide. Okay, this is an Aztec page from an Aztec codex called Fejaveri Maya. It's one of the 16 pre-Columbian, pre-Hispanic books that did not get destroyed by the Spanish. There were 4 Maya books and 12 Central Mexican books. This is one of the Central Mexican books that did not get destroyed. Thank goodness, because this is really a cool diagram, and it explains a lot to us about ancient Maya and Mesoamerican thought. In the center is the fire god, Xiuhtecutli. And then it's going to be pretty hard to see. In fact, it'll be impossible to see, but you'll just have to take my word for it, that there are little day name signs. That's crocodile, there's flower, etc. And there are dots on these bands. And in fact, there are 13 dots a day name, 13 dots a day name, and it goes around like this. It goes loop-de-loop. So time, and I should also say, so the 260-day cycle, each day is enumerated in these bands and in these loops. But also, the diagram is a diagram of space. So in Mesoamerican thought, ancient Mexican thought, east, in any kind of representation of space, east is always at the top. So east is up here, That means that's north. So time starts here in like the southeast on winter solstice, not on winter solstice, that's tying it to a different cycle. But anyway, so it starts here, and it wraps around the red quadrant of the east, the yellow quadrant of the north, the black, it used to be black, quadrant of the south, and the blue-green quadrant of the east. The colors have faded, okay? It's an old document. And then it starts over again. So this is the 260-day count in space. So every day has a number and a day name, and it has a color and a direction. Every day has a color, direction, number, day name, and then a bunch of other cycles. And also, what else was I going to say about this? Maybe that's enough to say about this. The 4 streams of blood, there's offerings. Oh, right, so in each of the 4 quadrants of space, there's a tree. This is a Maya or Mesoamerican diagram of a tree. Here's another tree, here's another tree, here's another tree. And on either side of the tree are beings giving offerings. So the concept is in Mesoamerica that, as we've seen, humans sustain the universe. Humans have a purpose. We're not just here like eating potato chips. We're sustaining the universe. And so that's why at each of the 4 directions, there are people up there making offerings, and there are streams of blood flowing around. So it's like the creator couple, when they tried to make humans who would sustain them, who would give them thanks and recognition and prayer. And so that's kind of what's going on here. We see humans doing that. Oops, it did work after all. Okay. So the UU has its 7 principles, and here are some Maya principles. First, much of the world is alive and has an indwelling spirit, and much of the world participates in a great exchange of life spirit, which the Maya had a word for, chulel. Secondly, the spirit of life manifests everywhere, but it also has an opposing spirit, what I call the spirit of anti-life, that sucks health and energy wherever it can. A third Maya principle is that humans have a purpose, as I said, to sustain the universe through offerings of words and of substances that will restore the balance of energy wherever it is lacking. On this monument, it's a stela, it's a drawing of a stela from the Maya site of Tikal. Some of you may have been to Tikal. The king is scattering drops of blood as an offering to the earth, which it was which is below him, but it's not portrayed here, and an offering to his ancestor, who's kind of floating up here in a cloud. The difference, I think, between the Euro-American UU 7th principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, and the Maya concept of interdependence, is that for the Maya, and for most First Peoples, humans' role in the web of existence is not passive. As the Maya creation narrative and these images make clear, humans had a role to play in the continuation of the cosmos. In the Popol Vuh, after the hero twins defeated the lords of the underworld in the ball game, they leapt into a fire, an earth oven, and let themselves be destroyed. And this sacrifice by the creator couple's grandchildren fueled the creator couple's 4th attempt to make the proper humans, the people of maize. The sacrifice of the god's offspring provided the energy for the next round of humans. Similarly, the plants and animals on the earth allow themselves to become food for humans. Now, according to Maya thought, humans have a reciprocal obligation to sacrifice something important, not just something extra that they can do without. So the gods have the sustenance to keep the world going, to keep the energy of creation in balance. The Maya creators appreciate words of thanks and praise. They like substances that are distilled essences of things, like smoke from candles and incense, and even distilled liquor. This is a slide of a Quiche Maya daykeeper offering some liquor and candle smoke to this sculpture, statue of his ancestor. The Maya also offered their blood, the ancient Maya offered their blood, their own life force, as an action of acknowledgement, of respect, and of reciprocity. Not in huge quantities, just in little drops, okay? And many members of this fellowship, to switch gears a little bit, have dedicated themselves to giving back, to acting in reciprocity for the bounty that the earth and civilization have given us. As we heard earlier, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Group is working with the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs and has done an amazing job of listening and helping. The Environmental Justice Group, I hear, is in the process of installing solar panels to reduce our reliance on the energy grid. And many of you help with the houseless, the food insecure, underprivileged children, your own family, friends, and loved ones. And all of these actions are meaningful, important efforts at reciprocity. Me, I'm still struggling to figure out what to give and how to give it. I'm hoping that sharing some of the story of the Maya, ancient and modern, can be part of my offering, and that this glimpse into the wisdom of one of America's first peoples can help the great giving people of this community and me to find even deeper ways to act reciprocally within the interdependent web of existence. And if it is our destiny, to face the next destruction and rebirth with resilience and determination. Now we can sing a song. Whoops. Where are, there we go. Thanks.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
May this clear flame be a symbol that every heart can burn bright with joy, peace, and harmony. May the wisdom of ages speak to us through this flame and stay in us. Every one of us can be a blessing to the world. We extinguish the flame, but not the light. Blessed be.
Forth, people of 20, with gratitude in your heart, with thanks on your lips, and with a growing recognition of your place in this community, in our world, and in the larger cycles of which we all are an interdependent part. Man, we even ended at 10. I mean, 11. Perfect.